What is good, guys? It's Rey-Jay back with another video, and in this one I'm going to break down what's going on with the market, what you should be watching for. I'm also going to break down when the market's about to make a very big move because PMI is coming out very soon, and also the technicals are telling us for the pre-market and some very important levels to watch for. Before I break anything down about all this information, let me just mention a couple of things. Firstly, I am not a financial planner, so take none of this as financial advice whatsoever. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Moomoo link, which is down below and in the description. If you sign up for Moomoo and deposit $100 into the account, you are guaranteed 5 free stocks with a $100 cash reward. Anyways, now let's talk about the market, what on earth is going on. So just so you guys know, the market is actually selling off pretty decently right now. It's not a crazy sell-off. The market is now below the 1 hour 200 EMA, which is a sign of weakness, and we are barely holding 433 right now. If this breaks on SPY, we're going to be watching 432 and potentially 430. But I was hoping that the market would get some kind of balance because we are technically forming a bullish divergence, but there's no indication that this is going to play out just yet. So I'd be very careful with this for now and just watch this on a level basis. But as the market sells off, right? Is selling off in the pre-market. The question is, how is it going to react after the big data comes out? Now, we had Bullard and Bostic, the two hawks from the Fed, giving their speeches, and that's part of why the market has been selling off. But you have to remember that 15 minutes after the market opens, okay, at 9:45 a.m. Eastern time, the PMI report is coming out. We have the global manufacturing PMI, the global services PMI, the global composite PMI, and a bunch of data. When the data drops, the market's going to react to it. If it's, if the market likes what it's seeing, we could see the market makers try to pump the market right back up to start filling these gaps. And if that's the case, we're going to be watching these resistance levels. If the market continues to slide, we're going to be watching support. So I just wanted to call out these levels. I was hoping for a nice bounce yesterday, but so far, the market's looking kind of weak right now. So we're going to see if that could actually happen. And also just be very patient. But I did go over both the bull and bear cases just to be safe, and sometimes unexpected things could happen. So we're just going to watch this and be very patient. Now for SPY, it's coming down pretty hard. Okay, so it's currently in the 432s now. Watch 432 as the major support. If that fails, 430 could come. So be very careful right there. But if this thing gets a bounce after the PMI report comes out or something else, we could see this thing make an attempt for 434. If it breaks above the 434s, watch 435, 435.91, which is where the 50 EMA happens to be. 436 is where we have this gap right here that's unfilled, so it could make its way up to try to fill this gap. If it breaks above 435, it's most likely going to push up to the 436s to get this gap fill. If it breaks above 436.64, watch 437 to 437.2. If it breaks that, then it has a lot of potential to push up a lot higher. But for now, the market's selling off and looking quite weak at the time I am recording this. So just be very careful and make sure you watch these levels. As for Tesla, just to be safe, Tesla is looking a little bit more bearish, but we need confirmation first. And there's going to be obviously, we have to wait for the PMI report. There is a gap on Tesla all the way up to about 265. But what is a little concerning about Tesla would be this. I told you guys that there was both a bull and bear case. I was hoping for the bull case to play out. But when you look at Tesla, you could argue that we have like a head and shoulders like formation. Tesla's about to sink. That's what the bears are going to be arguing. It's a possibility, right? We can't necessarily invalidate this or say it's impossible. It is possible for this to play out, but Tesla has to continue to sink. I also want to add that Tesla failed to break 265 so far. If it wants to reverse and invalidates this head and shoulders, it needs to break and hold above 265 and start pushing to 270 plus or higher than that. So far, it's looking a little bit weak in the pre-market. It's down about 1.58%. It's trying to hold 260. If 260 fails on us, we're going to be watching this thing go down to the mid 250s. If Tesla manages to break to the upside, it's going to be trying to fill this gap at around 264. If it breaks that, watch the entire 265 zone. If that breaks, it could make its way closer to 270. If 270 breaks, then it's going to push all the way up to 275 because we have that imbalance all the way up there. And it's likely going to make its way all the way up there if we get a break. But for now, it's looking a little bit weak in the pre-market. I'm hoping we get a balance, but it's going to depend on the PMI report at this point. So just be patient, be unbiased, and we will see how this goes. Finally, for the triple Q, this is also looking a little bit weak. It's currently sitting at about the 361 area, very close to support. It's trying to hold above the 4 hour 50 EMA. If it does try to get a bounce, you're going to be watching 363 as resistance. That's going to be a major resistance zone. If it breaks that, it has the potential to hit 365. Now, it needs to get above 365 to fill this gap. If that's the case, it's going to push all the way up to 366, then potentially 368 and 370. But 366 is where the gap is. So it's likely going to make this move all the way up there, at least if it gets above 364.99. If it starts to break down more, we have to watch 361.37, followed by 360 as major support. It needs to hold 360. If that breaks, there's going to be more potential for downside. But for now, technicals are starting to look a little bit more bearish, but this could all change depending on PMI. So be ready at 9:45 a.m. Eastern time. When you look at the NASDAQ, I also know that this thing does have this gap up here, so I don't know if it's going to like slow down and then try to push up. We get an intraday bounce, but just to be safe, watch it on a level to level basis and try to be unbiased. It is still possible for the market to bounce, but we need to see how it reacts to PMI. For the dollar index, it's actually up quite a bit. So the dollar, once again, being up is going to likely slow down the markets, but we'll see what happens intraday if it changes, because the dollar does have a rejection count that could be developing, but not a guarantee just yet. For Coinbase, it's barely at 56. If it breaks below the 50, it's going to drop a lot lower. If it tries to bounce off the 50, we're going to be watching resistance at 57, potentially 60. If it wants to turn really bullish, it has to break 60. For Aapl, it's actually down quite a bit. It's only at 185 right now. Could Aapl try to bounce at 185? If it does, it has the potential to retest 186, 186.5, 187.5, then potentially 188.6 or higher, making a new all-time high. So far, Apple's rejecting, looking a little bit weaker, but we will see. It does have this gap above, so we'll see if it tries to bounce here off PMI or not. It all depends on the data. It's really hard to predict what the data will tell us, so you have to be patient on that. If it continues to break below 185, it has the potential to come all the way down to 183.58. So there could be some downside as well, but I'm still hoping that there could be some kind of bounce off the report. Not a guarantee now, and we're just going to watch it and be unbiased nonetheless. For Nvda, you're going to be watching about this 421.5 area to 420. It's very close to it. It's only at about 425 for now. If it gets an intraday bounce, you're going to be watching this gap to get filled at 430. If that breaks, then 433 to 435 could come. But it is kind of stuck right now between support and resistance, going back and forth and back and forth. It's likely going to remain in this trend for the time being, and whichever direction it breaks in will cause a bigger move. So please be unbiased and try to be patient on that. Man, Meta was looking pretty good yesterday, but now it's starting to slow down just a little bit. Is it going to come down to this level down here around like the 280 area before it tries to bounce? Or is it going to come up to fill this gap at 284.89 and potentially 287? Right now, it's looking pretty kind of weak right now. It couldn't make its way down. It's looking a little bit more like that's going to happen, but I'm not guaranteeing anything until we see the PMI report. So please be well aware of the fact that this could always be a fake out or it may not be one. It all depends on the PMI. It all depends on how the market gets dictated afterwards. So please be unbiased. Watch your technical indicators. I'm still hoping the market tries to get an intraday balance, but once again, I'm not as confident about that now because of how we're looking. But it all depends on the data, and we're just going to be as unbiased as possible and then watch what happens and hunt for opportunities to either scalp this or look for potential day trade setups. At least that's what I'm going to do. Not financial advice. Thank you all so much for listening. I appreciate every single one of you. The stock market to the moon, as the long term is still incredibly bright despite all of these technical developments. And peace out.